thought Cal was going to fill up the chairs for you. Good luck with the chair.
Is there a lapel mic or something like that? That's all right. All right. I'd like to thank you all for coming to the second session of our 6. I don't like the confines of a podium, but this is the only way we can broadcast what's being said by the presenters. And when we do ask questions later in the session, grab one of the hand mics that does broadcast over DCO. We are broadcasting and recording the session over DCO. The email address where you can get a link to everything is SCOE, Sierra Charlie Oscar Echo .kmo@us.army.mil. That's a Sustainment CASCOM Center of Excellence. Again, we did manage to move to a larger room. We had a great session this morning. I'd like to engage those that did not have an opportunity to talk or ask questions this morning. I'm here for the rest of the week, and I think it's a great chance for us to frame a way ahead for the Army Knowledge Management Program and effort. I just got off the phone with Mr. Lewis. For those of you who don't know, there was an earthquake with epicenter in central Virginia, and of course we got a hurricane coming up the coast. So the building shook. They've evacuated a number of buildings. There are some cracks in the floors at the Pentagon, I understand. But he said everybody's safe, and then Eustis, apparently they're safe, which is where we're located now. That said, again, we'll hopefully endure through the rest of the week weather-wise and engage with your help on the way ahead. My discussion with Mr. Lewis was about proponency and who in the building would be the sponsor, and he is interested in looking at that because of the interests of my commanding general, because he believes that's one of the better that is the best place, Office of Business Transformation. That said, let me get on to introduce to you Jessica Gatewood. Jessica is in the CIO G6 office. They've been responsible for implementing an enterprise email solution. And the intent of this was they were sort of chartered by the CIO G6 to be the guinea pigs, best way to term it, because they have tremendous reach. They have significant subordinate commands. 70,000 or so is the number that I've heard. And as a result of that implementation, the Army's going to learn a lot of lessons about its own migration to 2010. We're going to learn about enterprise, for the enterprise solution, which General Lawrence talked about at the last lunch a little while ago, to try to accelerate that effort. No point in accelerating if we're going to learn lessons over again. So we're going to leverage the effort that AMC has begun. But Jessica comes from experience in the acquisition side of the house. She was in the acquisition corps. She worked for PEO C3T. She's been in the building in G4, and again, she is now in the office of the AMC CIO G6. I think she has an interesting presentation. It's similar to what she gave at the Swarm the other day. Some of you may have been at that, but for the knowledge management, for the technologies associated with the enablers, this is an important session. Jessica?
Thank you. Good afternoon. How many of you, this is your first presentation after lunch? Stretch. Put your arms way up, okay? For those of you who did go to the Swarm, this is not going to be exactly like that. The Swarm was really very technical, and I will tell you, my technical team, that's really about that. I was the talking head to introduce it, okay? What I want to bring to you today is the real power behind a functional and a technical solution that will manage and really make you feel like you have the power behind KM. Because if you don't, KM's not going to work. And I will tell you from a recent life learning experience, being bracked from a huge 4-star command, Virginia, NCR area, culture, people, organizations that have been embedded there for generations, never been anywhere else, moving to Huntsville, Alabama, there was a little bit of change, okay? A lot of lost knowledge that we didn't exactly, we had technical solutions, but we didn't grasp the importance of corporate knowledge and the power of KM and what this tool set can bring to bear. So that's going to be the focus of my presentation today. Before I start, please let me introduce the very dynamic team that I have, from architects, developers, to me, bleeding edge of Microsoft technology in the areas of SharePoint and the enterprise solution that we brought to bear. And Bernie Frelich, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it from the corporate level. Don Bowie is our PM, and the rest of my AEP team, please stand up. I will encourage all of you to seek them out. If you don't get your questions answered today during the forum, please seek them out. They got a lot of lessons learned that, believe me, it's an hour and 15 minutes, but it could go longer, because the way this works is a bonded technology with a functional and operational capability is the only way I believe KM has any opportunity for success. So with that, I will tell you, we started our endeavor back in 2007 when we were charged with how do we bring a single operational view, information source for BRAC. We had approximately 1,400 to 1,700 civilians in the headquarters, in addition to our contractor and associated workforce that was going to make that move from Virginia to Huntsville, Alabama. How are you going to do it? Now, you're talking about no increase in G1 force. Everybody's going to call their G1 folks. Everybody's going to call civilian personnel. I'm telling you, it would have looked like old phone things. Remember those ladies sitting in front of there and everybody's taking notes? We don't have that many people. How are we going to serve the people in a very, I'm telling you, not just a culture shock, but you are disrupting these people's lives with this move. What are they going to do? Information was such value, you couldn't keep the phones answered. You couldn't answer all the voicemail. We added lines, okay? So we knew we had to provide a source to let them know how to PCS, what was going to happen to them, what was going to be the timeline, who was moving who, all the points of contact they needed, what was going to happen on the ground, the schools, the doctors, the geographic locations, all of those things about making a major move of this order of magnitude to Huntsville, Alabama. So our CG charged us with providing a technical solution that would be their tool set for this move. Big, big. I'm just telling you, big. For one thing, it challenged the functional community to say, do we know all our business processes? Do we know who we're going to tell to contact for PCS moves? Who's going to handle all that? One person, many people, all those things? So again, from a knowledge management perspective, the technology couldn't drive that process. It can only enable it. So we were challenged with working with the functional community, getting those business process and business rules out there first, because what we didn't want to do is deploy a technology based on old business processes, dated points of contact, dated information, and people still not knowing anything more than they did, okay? So very much, to me, the heart and soul of knowledge management is that business culture of knowing what your operational environment is, what's your important information, what do you want to share, how do you want to discover it, what do you want it to look like. Now I'm going to step back in my material developer shoes and say, our first question is, what's your requirement? And the trust community says, I want a portal. What's your requirement? Okay? That's hard. That's easier said than done. You start off with a ConOps. You want to see how you want this to operate. Who wants to operate it? Who's going to be your users and your audience of it? And then start drilling down from there. So with that, next chart. Here's what AEP is bringing to bear from a technical solution perspective, okay? We did want to make sure that we provided workflows, that there were ways to shorten the time frame between a process, a workflow, documentation or information out there that we leverage the SharePoint capabilities. It's third-party tools that go with that SharePoint to make that process easier. So we spend a lot of time with the functional community understanding those requirements, who they wanted to expose it to, how they wanted to expose it to, and making sure that we made the most out of that technology for the user community. Because I can tell you, I can deploy a ThinkPad to my mom and it will probably do less than collect dust. She's not going to use it. She doesn't want to use it. Just because you build it doesn't mean they'll come, not the field of dreams, unless you make that bonded partnership with your functional community. And again, hands off to the headquarters for recognizing how important knowledge management was. In this BRAC move, the chief of staff of the AMC headquarters was in charge of this endeavor. We had to answer to him, to the CG. We had the G3 as a bonded partner. That's how important this endeavor was. So again, knowledge management must be led by the top, and the technology becomes the enabler. The rest of it, it becomes, I won't say easy, but less of a challenge if you start with that ground-based zero. Next chart. Again, a little bit of repeat on the technical side of our taxonomy and how we got there. What we wanted to offer the user, it's one thing to say, okay, you're going to have an iPhone or a BlackBerry. There'll be some that like, some that don't. But what's the real capability? It's not the technology. What is it that makes that technology easier for the user community? What were their fears about not putting things on a portal? Same thing they were about not putting them on the server. How many of you rather put data on the server or your hard drive? Raise your hand. Hard drive. Hard drive, I just lost all my data. Didn't back it up. I was gone a week. Lost stuff. There was a culture change years ago about putting on a server because you thought that hard drive, you had it, you controlled it, that was yours. Again, the way we set up the SharePoint, they were going to have to be challenged to put their information out there, make it discoverable to people so it was usable to people. Okay? Think about that. You had to think about, was there some sensitive? There probably is, especially in the acquisition arena. Some personnel, PII, you had to take into account. But guess what? At a BRAC level, you wanted to expose as much of that information to the broadest community as you could. At the top level where they didn't have to search for it. Okay? Didn't have to search for it. We needed to do as much as we could. And guess what else? Culture shock. It's not going to push to your email except as a notification. No attachments. Everybody wants it. We got used to that. Send it to me in an email. Send me that attachment. What happens? The bandwidth requirement, all of that stuff, we were resaving it in many, many places. If we made a change to it, the integrity of the original document was lost. All those things, knowledge management, capabilities being lost because you added value to something. I might have been repeating it or making it worse. Don't know that. We lost the ability to share. So another thing that we brought to bear with this technology is document control and requirements, collaborative, checking them out, everybody looking at the change. How many of you reviewed an AR in the last 30 days? Any AR? Okay. Now, how much better would it have been if each one of us only had to look at our section because we could see somebody else was already reviewing and putting our same comments in there. So we could focus our review on our core competency area. We could review other people's comments, but we didn't have to spend as much time on it because they were already taking care of that. Wow, powerful. Again, technology bonded with a functional requirement makes the KM world what it should be. Okay? Just a couple of examples. Another thing people were afraid of, well, if you sound like you're trying to build a big pyramid structure of building all this stuff for everybody and I won't get a priority and my stuff won't look like I want it to look. Autonomy. Big challenge here, but easy to do in this environment. Gerald Dunwoody set the branding strategy, the structure of how it's going to look. Our technical team did a very great job of making sure that things were technically configured. And guess what? We trained our content managers. You're the owner. You're the owner. You're the one responsible for authenticating